Hi, I'm Vida Clocky. Thank you for joining us today. With this video, we're going to finish this background on this scene. We started the evergreens. We did a tutorial on that. It's got a link below, so check that out on how the evergreens were painted. So join me and I'll show you how I'm going to finish this piece today. The colors that we'll be using to finish this winter scene today are pewter, which is one of my colors, cool shadow, lavender, shading green, and a little bit of dark green. And these China paints were all ground with open medium, which was mineral oil, to toothpaste consistency. My painting medium is my semi-open painting medium, and I use Terpenoid Natural for a light brush cleaner. And I use odorless mineral spirits for a deeper brush cleaner. The brushes I'll use today are the Aquaflows flat square shaders, and this is a hairbrush. It's synthetic and it has long and short hairs. You can use it for many different things like grasses and that, and sometimes I put a little foreground grass in to give some depth. We'll see if we're going to do that today. So let's get started. I'm going to think about the background and the sky first and then work my way forward. So I'm going to take one of the larger Aquaflows and I'm going to condition it in some of my semi-open painting medium, and this has a little bit of lavender in it already. And that's okay. So let's just tap some of the oil out. We don't want it too oily, or we're going to lose a lot of color. I always like to add a little bit of lavender into my winter sky colors, so I'm going to go up here and pull. I'm just going to try to get a lighter value of lavender and just lay in a little bit of a wash. I like to think somewhat diagonal when I'm doing winter skies. So we'll just, what we call, wash this color in long strokes. Now I'm going to switch to wipe my brush in a little oil and clean it off slightly. I'm going to switch to cool shadow. Pull, wiggle, not a heavy load. Just try to stay rather light yet. Bring it down to the horizon line, sort of in between some of the areas that I applied the lavender. I think a two-tone winter sky is a lot more interesting. A little bit more oil on that brush just to finish this area down here. Well, now that I have it all laid in, I'll smooth out my brush, and I might turn it this way to have a little bit more control. But I like to hold my brush towards the end of the handle and I get a lighter feathery stroke. So I will take this and barely touch my china, and I'm wiping the brush often so I don't get the colors muddied up together. And I'm just feathering out my strokes. Now let's see what we have. Okay, I like this. You know, you could leave this sky just the way it is if you wanted to. You could put a few, I would cut in and do a few streaks of white and soften it. But I'm going to show you how I put in a few little clouds. I take a cotton ball and I tore it apart so it would be smaller. And I'm going to put it into a silk here like this and twist it so I have a little rounded edge on that. And let's push in a few little clouds as we go through. You want to pretend that the Trees are not there when you do this. And you don't want these to look like a bunch of little heartbeats. Leave a few spaces between. Maybe I'll drop down here a little bit and do a little of another little layer here. Now back to my brush with no color. I'm going to turn it this way and I'm going to softly pull those clouds, barely touching. Do a light feather stroke. Okay, what do I have? Let's pull a little down here. I like what's going on up here. I don't think it looks like a bunch of little heartbeats, but I could see a little bit more maybe down here. So let's wipe out a little something. Not all the same level. Try to stagger it a little bit. Again, I'm coming through and softening. And I think that gives it a soft, illusional sky. All right, let's go down to our evergreens. That would be our middle ground. I like the cool shadow over these evergreens. I'm going to leave that. Let's go into a little odorless turp. A little synthetic wipeout brush. It really wouldn't matter what kind. And let's look at our two largest evergreens here and see if we can cut back a little highlight of the sky off of them to make them just a little lighter. If there's a lot of blue on there, sometimes we can lighten those up a little bit. And let's look at the shape of those now. Okay, am I happy with what we did last time? I think so. If not, I can go in with a little smaller brush here and tap in. I'm going into just a tiny bit of oil. Maybe I want to tap in just a tiny bit of black green in a few areas if I thought it looked a little flat, but I think the shape and everything is okay on those. And the ones that are in the background, I'm going to just leave less detail. This is just a simple little winter scene. There, I like that shape maybe a little bit better. Sometimes it's hard to tell on the first fire. I stuck my thumb in that, so let's pull that down a little. Feather that out. All right, let's look at what's going on down here. Let's back into the oil. I'm going to wash a little bit of pewter for like it's almost like a base color. So I have something to wipe back to for the snow. And I'm making my strokes rounded somewhat because I want that shape to look like a snowbank, a little bit rounded. I'm going to drop down to a little bit smaller brush and oil that, condition it, paint off a little bit. I'm going to go into a little shading green now and pull a few more shadows under the evergreens here, as they would be casting a little bit of a shadow. Soften those with my bigger brush, right on over the pewter. Let's bring in a little sky color now, a little cool shadow. A little bit too much, so I'll kind of walk that on over here. So we have to tie that in with the background, or the sky a little bit, so it would be reflecting somewhat. So let's pull that cool shadow on over. Now I have some highlight areas here, so I'm going to condition that brush again. Go into a little lavender and hit a few of those high spots. Because that might be reflecting off of the sky. Let's turn it this way and soften those colors. Now I'll go back to this little cotton ball again and silk. And let's pull out some snowbanks. For sure I want one here. Light against dark. Maybe I want a little bit of a highlight here. Let's work that on down now and feather that out. I'm working my way now down to the front. Let's make that into a couple banks there. It makes it more interesting. I like the dark against light, so I don't want to move that around too much. But I've got a couple mounds here that look identical, so I'll break that up a little bit. I think the less that you play with the snow, the better it looks. So you've got to create the dark against the light. I would say that is good. Now I will add a few little sprigs of grass or something to anchor down here a little bit that might be sticking out with a hairbrush. I'm mixing cool shadow with a little bit of shading green. I don't want to repeat and have this all look the same, so maybe I'll break it up and put a tiny bit back here. Less is better with this too, because you can overdo it. Now I want to get a nice highlight in front of that. I'll use my wipeout tool then. Take the buildup off with my cotton ball. And soften the rest out with my large Aquaflow brush. All right, I'd say to me, this is simple and easy. It's something you can practice on. Now, if I wanted to do additional loose evergreens back here, that might be a nice added little complement to the piece, or just leave it the way it is. Well, thanks for joining me for the scene that I just finished with the evergreens, the sky and the snow. I hope you learned something and enjoyed it. If you like my videos, please subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell for reminders on my upcoming videos. And if you have any questions on supplies or seminars, please visit my website at vitascollectibles.com.